Welcome back to Real Takes, where we are all movie love all the time. I'm Ann Stott, and tonight we're starting the way we always do, which is by highlighting an organization that I believe deserves our support. And in particular, tonight I'm talking about organizations that are offering relief to all the people in Pakistan affected by the flooding and the climate disaster happening there. The people who've lost loved ones, the people who've lost their homes, who've lost their livelihood, millions of people have been displaced. And there are two organizations I wanted to talk about. The first one is called Hands Pakistan, and the second one is Pakistan Red Crescent Society. And they are both working to bring relief to everyone affected by this devastating climate disaster, probably the worst natural disaster we've seen on the planet in the last 10 years. So if you can give to one of those organizations, that would be wonderful, and I thank you. And tonight we are still in the time of Virgo, so we are celebrating Virgo film artists, and you know that we often talk about directors here on the show, but tonight I want to talk about one of my favorite actors working today, Michelle Williams, who is a Virgo. Her birthday's coming up. Happy birthday, Michelle Williams. I love Michelle Williams' work so much, and I do think there's a sort of a Virgo-ness in her work, like a kind of earthy sensuality in her work and in the energy she brings to the project she does. But part of what I love about her work is her choices, and she really, she chooses these very small independent projects, and then she also works on sort of bigger budget Hollywood things. And I love that she's kind of, worked in this range of films for a long time. In fact, from her early career, she actually started acting at the age of 12. And one interesting tidbit is that her first manager or agent was also a part-time undertaker. So it was like that for a while in the beginning. And then she had a big break being on the TV show Dawson's Creek, which was a huge hit and had made stars of some of the other actors like Katie Holmes. And Dawson's Creek ended in 2003. And in that year, she was in an independent film called The Station Agent. So I just wanted to come in and say a little more about The Station Agent because I didn't give it enough love here. The Station Agent was the first writer-director project of Tom McCarthy, who would then go on to write and direct The Visitor and Spotlight. And it starred the great Peter Dinklage, the divine Patricia Clarkson, who we talked about when we talked about High Art, and the always fantastic Bobby Cannavale. And it's a lovely little story about three people who form an unlikely friendship when their paths cross at different transitional moments in each of their lives, and they're living in a small town, and Michelle Williams plays the librarian, or not the librarian, but a young woman who works at the library and connects with them. And it's such a sweet little film, and again, the beginning of this trend of Michelle Williams working on the one hand on this Hollywood mainstream hyper successful television show, and then choosing to tell a sort of quieter, simpler story. In 2010, she was in Shutter Island, a huge Martin Scorsese film starring Leonardo DiCaprio, and she was also in Blue Valentine, this stark, gritty, independent film with Ryan Gosling where they played a troubled married couple. And then this fall, she is in two films that are coming out. One is, Meeple, what are you doing? He's licking a toy. He's getting a high. Meatball's getting a little, what's that stuff we give to them? Catnip high down there. And he likes to lick it. He's licking it. So this fall, Michelle Williams is in The Fabelmans, which is Steven Spielberg's next movie, which is semi-autobiographical film about his childhood, and Michelle Williams is playing his mother. And at the same time, she's coming out in the latest Kelly Reichardt film called Showing Up. And we talked about Kelly Reichardt already here on the show, and also Michelle Williams in the spring during Kelly Reichardt's birthday time. But it's fitting that we would bring her up again when we're talking about Michelle Williams, because Michelle Williams and Kelly Reichardt have formed a really strong working relationship, and they've made 4 films together over the last sort of 15 years. And Kelly Reichardt works on very independent films, low budget films, sort of made for around $2 million, which is not the average budget for a Steven Spielberg film. But they first connected, they made Wendy and Lucy together in 2008. And they connected because Michelle Williams had worked on a Todd Haynes film, and Todd Haynes is friends with Kelly Reichardt and is a producer on almost all of her films. And Todd Haynes sent Michelle Williams the script and said, please don't be put off by how small this project is. And then Michelle Williams saw an earlier film of Kelly Reichardt's, Old Joy, which we talked about here in the spring, which I love. And she was so moved by Old Joy, and she knew that this was the kind of storytelling she wanted to do as an actor, and that she'd always envisioned doing. And so she signed up to do Wendy and Lucy, which I don't even think had a $2 million budget. It had a budget scraped together by, donations from friends. And apparently the way that they flew Michelle Williams to the location with her daughter and a nanny was that everyone in the crew pooled together their frequent flyer miles. And that's how they afforded to get her there. Michelle Williams wore her own clothes for the shoot. And low budget film, which is a gorgeous film, and when I first started really focusing on Michelle Williams, I had seen her in the Station Agent. Okay, I'm just clarifying this here. So I had seen Michelle Williams in The Station Agent and liked her a lot, and I'd also seen her in Brokeback Mountain. She played Heath Ledger's wife. I loved her in Brokeback Mountain. There was something about Wendy and Lucy where I made the transition from, oh, this is an actor I really like and enjoy, to this is an actor who I want to watch sort of no matter what. And now I'll watch a movie just because Michelle Williams is in it, even if the subject matter doesn't interest me or whatever. I'm in, and she chooses a lot of projects that do interest me, so that works out well. But that transition happened from actor I like to actor who can get me to watch a movie just because of her presence with Wendy and Lucy. Wendy and Lucy is a beautiful film about Wendy and her dog Lucy, who was actually Kelly Reichardt's dog, Lucy. And Wendy is living out of her car. And Kelly Reichardt has said that she felt sort of in the early aughts that there was this shift in attitude around poverty in the United States that went from sort of people who had resources just kind of wanting to ignore poverty to an actual attitude of disdain toward poverty. And she wanted to just tell a story about a person, experiencing poverty and sort of trying to get themselves to the next place and the obstacles that they run into in that time. So she's living out of her car, and her car breaks down, and sort of the snowball effect that has on her life and the choices that she can make. And it's very quiet, as we talked about when we talked about Kelly Reichardt's films. She's not someone who feels that a scene is about what people say. She's much more interested in the kind of small moments between the action or the key plot points, kind of what is revealed. And Michelle Williams has said that you can feel when you're on a Kelly Reichardt set, like, is something happening? Is anything happening? Am I doing anything? And then when Kelly Reichardt finishes shooting the whole thing and then she edits her own films, like, ultimately, this kind of magical hum happens throughout the whole film, and a kind of deeper story than we sometimes see when we're moving from plot point to plot point and dialogue to dialogue kind of reveals itself. And Wendy and Lucy definitely did that, and had a huge amount of success for the budget it was made for. It premiered at Cannes. It won a lot of awards. It was very exciting for everyone involved in the film to be, getting that level of attention for it when it had been such a labor of love and a, low budget experience. So Wendy and Lucy is a really special film. Highly recommend watching it. It's the second time that Lucy appeared in a Kelly Reichardt film, because Lucy had a lot of separation anxiety and didn't like being alone. So she just ended up in movies. The other collaboration between them that I want to talk about is Meek's Cutoff from 2010. I already talked about Certain Women when I talked about Kelly Reichardt before. And well, that came out after Meek's Cutoff, actually. So they made Wendy and Lucy in 2008, and then they made Meek's Cutoff in 2010, which also starred Zoe Kazan and Will Patton and Paul Dano. And that was a much bigger undertaking for Kelly Reichardt. It's a period piece set in the high desert of Eastern Oregon, and it's a wagon train story. It's about a group of people who have formed a wagon train to go west, and they have hired a guide to take them through this section of the desert, and they are lost. And they don't know how to get found again. And it's a revisionist Western. It's a feminist Western. And again, it's a Kelly Reichardt movie. So we are hanging in the desert with the wagon trains, with the wagons and the oxes and the fires and the hard bread and the elements. And you really feel by the end of this film, like you can sort of feel like you might have some dust in your throat, but that's part of what I love about it. And there's all this silence and all this landscape and so much tension from just sitting with a sliver of the reality of what it must have been like to be walking across this desert, at some point questioning whether or not you're going to survive. It's a powerful, powerful, beautiful film, and everyone's great in it. An ensemble cast, really moving work from everybody, beautiful work from Michelle Williams, and they lived out there. They lived in a motel. They didn't live actually in the desert in the wagons. They lived in a motel in a small town somewhere near the various locations. But apparently the idea was that they weren't going to wash their clothes for the whole shoot. But at some point, the cast rebelled against that. And there was like a washing of the clothes because they just got too disgusting. So Meek's Cutoff, another great Michelle Williams, Kelly Reichardt collaboration. And now this movie showing up, coming out, the next Michelle Williams, Kelly Reichardt collaboration coming out this fall. So excited to see it. Michelle Williams plays a sculptor who's trying to get ready for a show and deal with her job. And again, because it's a Kelly Reichardt film, sort of how our bigger struggles interact with the realities of day-to-day life, I guess is a big part of the film. I haven't seen it yet because it's not out. But then Michelle Williams also coming out in this Steven Spielberg film. And in one Kelly Reichardt interview, she was asked, what's so great about working with Michelle Williams? And she said that she's game. Like, she's always game for whatever needs to be done to tell the story, and that she's not concerned, with the image of her character. She's not concerned with making sure her character's a good person or not a good person. And, you know, Virgos can sometimes be a little uptight. You know, the Virgin is the symbol for Virgos, and that can manifest in a bunch of different ways. And actually, okay, clarifying. So yeah, so Virgos can be like uptight and a little repressed and prissy, or they can go to the flip side and sort of delve into the murkier side of sexuality and emotional complication. And I feel like Michelle Williams really has a willingness to kind of go deep into complicated human experience and choose work that sort of sits in you know, the gray zone of hard choices that other people might label as right or wrong. I'm thinking about Take This Waltz, the film directed by Sarah Polley, and I'm thinking about After the Wedding, which she made with Julianne Moore and Billy Crudup. It's a remake of this Suzanne Bier original film, Danish filmmaker. There was an American remake of that film, After the Wedding, that Michelle Williams was in. And in both those films, she's, you know, really exploring the humanity of hard choices that, you know, other storytellers might want to judge or label. And I never feel that from her. But there's so many great Michelle Williams performances. Blue Valentine, which she made with Ryan Gosling. She's wonderful in My Week with Marilyn, and she's unforgettable in Manchester by the Sea. She's a supporting character. She's maybe in 4 scenes, and it's like seared into my body, like the truth that she brought to those moments in Manchester by the Sea, which was you know, she was nominated for tons of awards for that. So, so much work that I love by her. She says she likes to over prepare, so that she can be ready for whatever might come up on set. And several directors talked about how she has this kind of manifesting ability on set where something happens between saying action and cut, where she kind of evolves into what the character needs in any given moment in a way that's really special. And it was cool to hear directors talk about that, because that's what I feel when I watch her work. So all movie love to Michelle Williams. Thank you so much for all your beautiful work. I look forward to seeing your films coming out this fall and in the future. And I hope all of you enjoy some Michelle Williams films. Tell me your favorite Michelle Williams performance in the chat below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next Wednesday. Thanks for watching Real Takes. Hit the subscribe button below so the algorithms will tell you when new episodes are out. And if you want to support Real Takes, please visit my Patreon page, where you can join at any tier from $2 to $100 per thing I make. The $15 tier is specifically about supporting Real Takes, and you'll get behind the scenes information and be thanked in future videos. See you next Wednesday.